views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program host and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by TCN TV Network Incorporated. Due to the social nature of this broadcasting channel, videos may contain content copyrighted by another entity or person. The TCN TV Network claims no rights to the said content. TCN TV Network cannot be held accountable for the copyrighted content. TCN TV Network is a messenger and sharer of information and strives to verify but cannot warrant the accuracy of copyrights or completeness of the information on this program.
Welcome to Shaping Life. So this is the show where we discuss all things health and connect with the right people and information to set us on a path to being our best selves. And I'm your host, Trish Curling. So today's a little bit different. Today, I don't have a guest with me. I'm going to be actually sharing my own story and talking to you about really how the path of yoga really took me into a new direction, helped me to heal. I'm going to be sharing some of the intimate details about the loss of my older brother and some of the injuries that I dealt with as well. And again, like I said, how yoga really took me on a path to healing. So I don't want to get it twisted. It's not that yoga was the only thing that I did. There were many components and things that I did to help myself and continue to help myself with, because the journey never really ends. But I do want to get into how it does have that ability to help us to move on a path towards our best selves. So from an outside perspective, it might seem unbelievable that, a series of poses can actually do something for us. But yoga is really so much more than just, flexibility and strength, as we often, associate it with. There's a lot of deeper things happening to the brain, to the nervous system. And this is how it helps us to move forward and come out of places of pain, whether it be emotional and or physical. So I want you to actually really understand, though, and this is why I want to get into this. I want you to share the early beginnings of my story and for you to really kind of see the essence of what my experience was. And not that my experience is unique. I'm fully aware that many people are dealing with things that, are much more difficult than I could ever imagine. But my story is unique to me. And my only hope is that by sharing it, that I will be able to communicate to those of you that are watching just the deep love that I had for my brother, both of my brothers, and there we are there, and really how you can come out of a place of pain and move into the light. So it was, a tragedy when we lost him, of course, and this is really why I should just jump back a little bit and say this is really why I'm doing this show, and this is why I call it Shaping Life, because my journey of losing him, of experiencing the injuries that I did, and sometimes maybe still do. Like I said, it's a continuing journey, but I wanted to be able to people to understand that we do have access to different forms of healing, different modalities of treatment. We have access to people who can really set us on that path. And I'm going to be talking to you and referring back to some of the people that have really been there to help me through this process as well. So I'll tell you, my brothers and I grew up really, really close. So my older brother who passed away, his name is Andrew. And, even with the amount of years between us, Andrew's 8 years older than me, and my younger brother, Kevin, is 4 years younger than me. So, but even with the age difference, we grew up like as if we were the same age, thick as thieves, always getting into whatever kind of trouble. I'll share a story with you. Andrew used to play hockey growing up as a kid, and I remember being probably about 5 or 6 years old, and my parents got him some brand new hockey equipment. So he was like really excited, and they said to him, "Andrew, do not go outside and play street hockey with this equipment. We paid a lot of money for this stuff. Don't go outside and play with it." So of course, what does he do? He goes outside, he plays with it, and told me, "Trish, don't tell mom and dad. I'm going outside. I'm going to go play some hockey. Don't tell anybody." And I felt like, oh man, like I'm bestowed with this really important task and this really important information. So those are the earliest memories of me remembering, how we kind of created that bond, and it was like us against them in early days. So this is kind of really how we operated. Andrew had such a huge influence on me in terms of my love for music, the amount of times that we laughed. And that picture of us even there just really shows you, like, just from the start, how much he was my protector and how much I really looked up to him. He was always very, too, like I said, he played hockey. He was always very active in sports. And so that actually really also had a huge influence and impact on my love of activity and sports as well. Growing up, I played volleyball. He did everything. He played soccer, basketball. So that was always kind of a major part of my youth. But when I had my daughter, my activity level and my weight changed. I gained a lot of weight when I was pregnant, and I actually kept it on. And it was Andrew who took me back to the gym and helped me to get back into shape again. And so those are the little things that stay with me. He was really my friend more than even just my brother. So when I started working out, that actually took me on a path of becoming a personal trainer and also a group fitness instructor. And I started teaching at a big box gym, and that was great. But as my daughter got older, I decided to go into teaching, and that after the first few years of teaching, I began to put on the weight again. Learning that new being in that profession and the hours that are put in for that. But I was at the same time really looking to get back into that physical activity again. So I started dancing. I actually belonged to a small African dance company, and really enjoyed that, really loved that. And so yeah, there's me as a personal trainer many, many moons ago. And teaching yoga as well at the time, a fusion class of yoga, Tai Chi, Pilates. So I was dancing, I was getting back into shape, and things were feeling really good again. And I thought, wow, okay, I'm coming back into myself. And then just as I started to feel really good, just as I started to lose the weight, my brother died. And that changed everything forever. So when we come back on Shaping Life, I'm actually going to share with you, really just the impact and how much it really shook me, and go into a little bit of the details. So it's a little hard to think about, sharing these details and putting yourself out there like this. But if I can communicate to someone that might be feeling the same thing, then this is why I'm doing what I do. So see you soon on Shaping Life.
With so many newspapers within the community, it's sometimes hard to tell what separates us from the rest. Most of the time, they all brag about the same thing. The large circulations, tons of online views, and it can go on and on. But what really separates the Toronto Caribbean newspaper apart from everybody else? Well, it's simple. Our service. No, seriously. Hi, I'm Grant Browning, founder and CEO of the Toronto Caribbean newspaper. I have over 20 years of branding and marketing experience, and I've worked with countless companies and corporations to do one thing, and that is to raise their profits with their brand. With over 40 years of combined experience in branding and marketing, our amazing staff is fully prepared to sit down and figure out exactly what you need to stand out from your competitors.
The reason why you don't see that anymore is because
the ad is too powerful, bring too much people.
So what are you waiting for? Give us a call today. We'll be happy to help.
So let me tell you about how that weekend went down. My brother came to spend the weekend at my place. It was a great weekend. My niece was there, his daughter, my daughter, and we went swimming, and Andrew and I, of course, were chatting and just doing what we do, just hanging out, eating food and just having a good time. And he had actually also even started his own company at that time. So we talked a little bit about that because we had this really good conversation about how at the time we were feeling like we were really living in a reactive place. And it's so interesting, again, how life gives you these messages. But we were having this conversation, talking about how reactive we were being in life, that, what happened to, some of the dreams we had or some of the things we had. Yes, I was teaching, that was my profession at the time. And, there were so many things that I enjoyed about it. But I was still feeling like I was waiting for Friday, and it just wasn't giving me that 100% fulfillment. And he had just recently left his job to start his business, his t-shirt company, and he was starting to kind of get that that fire back, that passion about doing what he really wanted to do in life. And we spent that weekend together, like I said, and it was amazing. And on Sunday, that Sunday of that weekend, I dropped him over to my parents' place to meet with my brother, and they were going to play some music because they're both DJs. So like I said, we all love music. So we went there, and I dropped him off. And in the middle of the night, I got a call. So this is what can be really hard. I'm going to try to not be like Oprah's early days and cry here, okay? But I got a call in the middle of the night, and I could hear my younger brother kind of like, I thought he was laughing. And so this wasn't unusual. The two of them calling me in the middle of the night with some foolishness to talk about, to give me a laugh. And I thought he was laughing. And as I listened a little closer, I heard him crying. And he said that, Andrew just collapsed and I need to get here now. So I should back up a little bit, that when I dropped him off at my parents' house, again, like I said, life gives you these messages. I was leaving, and as I was leaving, we were saying bye at the door, and I looked at him just for a little extra moment, and I thought to myself, I should give him a hug. And I was like, nah, stop being silly. You're going to see him, in the week. No big deal. He knows how you feel about him. And we just said our goodbyes, and I left. But I looked at him just extra long, that extra moment. And so coming back to when, Kevin called me, and I was flustered. I was going to work the next day. It was a Sunday night. Now I had to wake up my daughter. I had to, get her, and like, how am I going to wake her up in the middle of the night to tell her her uncle has collapsed? So we drove back to my parents' place, and I called my dad, and I said, Dad, what's going on? And I could hear it, and I could feel it in his voice that something was very, very wrong. And that was it. I got to the hospital, and I saw the look on the nurses' faces when I got to the emergency. And I said, I'm here to see my brother. He was just brought in, where is he? And they just the two of them looked down, and I said, oh man, something's really, really wrong. And that was it. He was gone. So, I spent the next, honestly 4 years feeling like, again, that same reactiveness that we were talking about. I was just lost. I fell into a deep depression. The shock of it all, initially it was just this huge shock that somebody who was healthy, who was working out, who was in shape, would just be gone just like that. 41 years old, almost 42 at the time. It was just days away from his 42nd birthday. And that was it, And we always hear these things. We know that, life is too short, tomorrow's never promised, all of those things. But this really, I really came into the fullness of that understanding, at the end of these 4 years when I just, I put on more weight. I was just getting up every day and just going to work, doing what I had to do, not even thinking about, what I had to, living life in a way that was, purposeful or where I would have some excitement. And because he was gone, he was my best friend. My brothers are my best friend, and it was just a devastation. So at the end of this 4 years, after incurring more injury because of the weight gain, inactivity, all these things that were just plaguing my spirit, I said, I need to do something about this. I have to take control. And I'd seen a wonderful friend of mine, Jessie Lamb, who was actually on the show just a few weeks ago, her and her husband, Joe. And I'd seen her journey with yoga, and, there they are. So, I always have to be so in deep gratitude for these two. I watched her yoga journey over the years, her practicing, and I thought, wow, I wish I had kind of stayed in fitness and done and continued that life, but I didn't. And the reality is that, I had to humble myself. I was a personal trainer before. I was teaching fitness classes. How can I reach out to somebody who's, somebody I used to work with, also younger than me, but I really had to say, it doesn't matter. It was really a life or death situation. I was in such deep depression and sadness that I had to reach out to her. So between her and her husband, who's an RMT, I started practicing yoga with Jessie. I started working out. And this is why I also say that it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just yoga, but we did these things. I worked with her in this capacity, and that's when everything changed. And I just took it, really one day at a time. So you can see my transformation there. I went from, just being like, look at my gut, man. Like, I was not happy. You know, and it wasn't just the physical, like I said, it was really how I was feeling from the inside, and it was just showing itself on the outside. And in just a few months of some commitment and practicing deep gratitude and, you know, changing my mind. I've been, you know, if you've been watching previous episodes, you'll know that the mindset was one of the things that I really had to work on first and had to make some really serious changes with. So through all, you know, through those things, changing my eating, you know, that was hard too. You know, that was one of the things is I love food, man. So, but you could see the change. You can see what's happening there. You know, I'm playing again on the mat. I'm having fun. You know, Jessie and I, you know, had some great sessions. You know, she was really there for me in the beginning when I was super emotional. And then it just, you know, I know that she watched that transition of me growing from somebody who was feeling, you know, like I had no confidence anymore into somebody who could, you know, have ability. And again, that's part of what the yoga provided. I mean, look at that forearm stand in the picture below. You know, I would never have dreamed that I would have been able to do that. And I was able to do that through her support, her husband, you know, working on some of my injuries, as well as an RMT, and staying consistent. So I was still teaching at the time. I was still teaching. I was teaching kindergarten, so imagine that stress. But you know, I started to make that shift because you can see. I think we have a clip of me and what was happening very regularly in my classroom during recess and some of the times that the kids maybe have been outside or on break. But I started to deal with a lot of the stress that I was doing from the job by, you know, there we go, there I am, doing a little flow. You know, I was like, okay, I got 10 minutes. The kids are outside for recess. So I used to just have my yoga mat under my desk, and it would just provide a little bit of time to breathe. And I'll get into, you know, some of the benefits as we go into the next segment of yoga. But time to breathe, time to move, and just kind of center myself so that I would feel recharged. And that's really part of what yoga provides, that ability to provide some resilience and recharging. And the kids would come back, and, you know, I had a little break, and you could shake it off. And, you know, of course, that's what movement provides. So close to that end of that year that I started working with Jessie, you know, I decided to leave teaching. You know, I made the decision that, you know, the benefits that I received from just like yoga, you know, training, they were so powerful that I realized, you know, it really brought me out of that place that I never thought I would leave. You know, I couldn't believe that my body was feeling pain-free. I couldn't believe that I wasn't, you know, crying every day about my brother. You know, that I could really cope and deal with these stresses and have something in my tool bag to call upon. And so I realized, you know, I know that other people, I can't be the only one feeling this way. They're obviously, you know, we all experience loss. We all experience pain in some form. And I really had to share that. So when we come back, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the benefits, not just some of the benefits of yoga. I mean, there's so many, but there are just a couple or a few that I want to highlight because they were able to help me in my journey so much. So stay tuned, and we'll talk about that when we come back on Shaping Life.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
At Benjamin Law, we understand the real cost of personal injuries. As the victim of an accident, you may be the one who's physically hurt, but your main concern is that your family are the ones who will pay the price. Benjamin Law will be there for you, helping, supporting, and working tirelessly to resolve your personal injury case. Call 1-855-899-4878 or visit benjaminlaw.ca and let our family of lawyers help your family.
So welcome back to Shaping Life. Well, as I said before the break, I'm going to dive in a little bit into some of the specifics about, some of the benefits and what actually really helped me with yoga. And, so what is it? What really happened? How did this shift happen? I think one of the first places to look at with yoga is that, what happens is that we develop a relationship with our wholeness, our body, mind, and spirit. We do this in so many ways, and in my opinion, one of the ways that we learn to do this is by creating focus. We learn to become more focused on our breath, and that's really, again, one of the first places to start. Even if you're not getting on your mat, or even if you're not, ready to go into a physical practice, which, again, yoga is so much more than just, the poses and a physical practice. But just being able to kind of tune in to how we breathe, and its ability to actually settle you. We learn about our bodies in space, so when we are practicing and doing a physical practice, we're so focused on, the intricate parts, where the feet are placed, how and where and when to create tension, when to, be soft and release. So all of these things that consistently play a role in, our movement on the mat. And by developing, a consistency with these types of practices, this is how we learn to actually rewire the brain and respond to life in a different way. So this is essentially what happened to me. I love this clip. We're going to play a clip in a moment from Bo Forbes. Bo Forbes is a clinical psychologist and a yoga therapist. She teaches internationally, and she talks about how we create real change in the brain just through subtle practice. So we're going to just show that clip in a moment.
Time. And so using our knowledge of how the brain changes to bring about changes of all kinds. And when I look at neuroplasticity on that level, it's such an encouraging, no matter where we've come from, whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder or a life of violence or anxiety or depression, all we need are subtle experiences of not being anxious and not being depressed, repeatedly practiced over time in a very elegant scaffolding so that more is integrated as the person is able to integrate them. That's what change is really about. And for young therapists that are training to be yoga.
I mean, she explains it so well. When I saw this, I thought, this is really exactly what happened with me. I felt like I started to feel this shift because I was giving myself some time to not focus on the tragedy, constantly playing the experience, the phone call, just all these things that create that trauma, continuously, and feeding that in my mind, and my time on the mat became my time to rest. It became that time to not be completely focused there, and not that it means either that we step onto the mat and everything just magically goes away. It is a work in progress. It is, like I said, constantly having that conversation with yourself, let me bring my focus back to my breath. Let me bring my focus back to what I'm doing in the present moment. And, that's what really helped me to apply that healing. So I would look forward to this hour or whatever it was, of class on the mat. But I slowly started to see how I could translate that from not just the experience there, but moving into, the rest and the other areas of my life. So I want to just break down some of the things. We're going to look at some of the benefits here. So, releasing tension in the body, so as I was saying before, slowing down our breath, creates this wonderful response in the nervous system, because we activate the parasympathetic, that part of the body that is, or that part of the system that turns on our rest and digest. And what we don't realize is that a lot of healing happens with that. We're living in a society now, I think, where we're so super focused on, getting everything done, and we're living in the sympathetic, which is not, we need that part as well. We need to utilize that part of the nervous system very much so, but creating that balance, yoga really helps to create that balance so that we're not constantly or consistently living in the sympathetic part of the nervous system. So focusing on the breath, sitting in silence, if actually we can just move back for a moment. Focusing on the breath and sitting in silence, can really help us to face the feelings that we're experiencing, and creating space, right? Like, I didn't really understand that. We hear these things sometimes in yoga, what does that really mean? But it really, like I said, allowed me to not be replaying and reliving these things constantly. it helped me to step away and focus on something else. So the emphasis of focusing on the breath, especially if we're consumed with those thoughts. If we wake up, we're in physical pain. We wake up, we're in emotional pain. It's always there. You wake up and it's just there. And, it can be interpreted as avoidance, but, in fact, I really think it's that ability. What's happening is that it is rewiring the brain and our ability to respond in a new way. So when we do this continuously and consistently, and it doesn't have to be for this lengthy amount of time, but when we do this for a little bit of time each day, like even if you spend 5 minutes, it really does rewire the brain. So I want to talk about, in the next slide, we'll see the first, we call it pranayama, or breathing, that I really learned about, an ujjayi breath. And you'll see that very often in a class, if you're attending a class. Again, depending on the style of yoga, depending on the teacher, depending on what you're doing, there's so many things. But like I said, one of the benefits is that it does provide that calmness, and it does, as I talked about, soothe the nervous system, and actually, physiologically removes stress hormones from the body. So the way to do that is to, inhale through your nose, exhale through your nose, but create a little constriction or a little closing in the back of the throat. And when you do that, and you just kind of allow your belly to be soft, you allow the rib cage to expand, you build in, again, like I said, that calmness, and it really does physiologically change you. It changes your stress response. So that's just how, we can talk about how the breath might be a simple concept, but it really does have a very large impact on our healing. So let's look at the next slide. Very simply, it makes you happier. Looking at that. Okay, so while it's not as simple as that, a study found that a consistent yoga practice improved depression and led to a significant increase in serotonin levels. So that's what I'm saying about, the fact that it's not just this, I breathe slowly and, I feel better, I'm happier. But there does become this change on the cellular level in the body, on the hormones that are released. Like I said, the increase in serotonin. And not to take away from other modalities of treatment, because it is so important to seek out the treatments that you need. Maybe it is medication, maybe it is seeing a psychologist, or whatever the case may be. Like I said, it's not a simple one thing like yoga is going to, heal you. I can only share my experience and what happened for me, but it is a wonderful place to start. So let's look at, I think we're going to talk about, so I was talking to you about, injuries. So some of the injuries I was plagued with were, I had, a shoulder, I had shoulder issues, knee issues, my back, I had arches that were dropping, so I had a very swollen ankle. Like, I had this laundry list of injuries that I was dealing with, and, was plagued with that. And how depressing is that too, right? I mean, you wake up every day and you're in this physical pain, and I felt like, I'm 30-something years old, and I feel like I'm falling apart. But if you look, if you can see this, and you can read yourself, but each time we practice yoga, we take the joints through a full range of motion. So this can help to prevent degenerative arthritis, or mitigate, disability by the squeezing and soaking effect. So, the synovial fluid that gets recharged and put back into the areas of the joints that where we need it. The areas of cartilage that aren't normally used. And, I was talking about the squeeze and soak. The joint cartilage is like a sponge, so it receives that fresh nutrients, that synovial fluid, when we're moving and giving the joints that ability to be used. And that's why when we stay stagnant, that's why we can come into areas of pain, and that's why movement is so important. And yoga is such a wonderful way to access. You can graduate yourself if you've been inactive for a long time. It's such a great way to reintroduce that movement. So as I mentioned before, everything was really kind of spilling into other areas of my life. So I'll briefly just go through, some of the benefits. Like I said, I won't go into every single one, but because the list is ridiculously long. But increased flexibility, increased strength, improved digestion. Like I said before, with the breathing, reduces the secretion of stress hormones, improves circulation, improves posture and balance. All of these things that are required for us to live, our lives optimally outside of the mat. So, like I said, the list goes on, but I can speak to, again, my own experience of how I saw all of these things happen as I developed a consistent practice. And it doesn't mean that we're always consistent, right? Life happens and things happen, but we always have this tool bag to reach back into to be able to come back to and access. So when we come back, I'm going to talk to you about, some of the huge shift and the change that I made. I talked to you about leaving teaching and some of the things that are happening with me now and how everything has really moved into leaps and bounds. So I'll see you soon on Shaping Life.
At Benjamin Law, we understand the real cost of personal injuries. As the victim of an accident, you may be the one who's physically hurt, but your main concern is that your family are the ones who will pay the price. Benjamin Law will be there for you, helping, supporting, and working tirelessly to resolve your personal injury case. Call 1-855-899-4878 or visit benjaminlaw.ca and let our family of lawyers help your family.
Welcome back to Shaping Life. So what happened? Like I said, this huge impact that, this tragedy that came into my life and my family's life, but really propelled me into a new direction. I was really able to, yoga did so much more for me than just, like I said, heal me physically and emotionally, or like I said, had a hand, because there are other things that took a big role as well. But now, because of all the impact that this had, I thought, I have to share this. I can't continue to teach, at elementary school and not share this profound practice with people who I know, like I said, might be feeling or in similar situations or worse situations that, and if in some humble way I could, share what I've learned and what I continue to learn. I developed a neo-yoga. So I left teaching. And I started my business, again, similar to my brother's path, left my career as a teacher and decided to take a big risk and a big jump and go out to share this practice. So what's a knee? What's a neo-yoga? So a knee, people ask me this all the time. My brother used to call me a knee. When I was young, when I was a teenager, he read this book called, Andrew was an avid reader. That's another thing, too, that he really got me into. And he read a book called Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And hands down, one of the greatest books I've ever read. And he knew that at the time I was looking for an African name. And he said, I read this book. You're going to love it, which I did. And he said, there's a name in there, a knee, and it means earth goddess. And I think that that's the name for you. And it just really resonated with me, and that's the name that I took. So, and that's really, again, how a knee was born. And then when it was only natural that when I decided to start my business that I would tribute that to him. Because a knee or yoga is really about a return to self, and that's what happened to me. So, I've had this amazing opportunity now to work with, amazing clients, and whatever it is that goals they had, whether it was weight loss, whether it was again just practicing yoga. There are two of my awesome clients, Lay and Maureen, enjoying themselves and showing off at the beach. So it's just really taken me, like I said, more into my purpose. To see this, look at this transformation. To see things like this and to see change happen in other people's lives are really what I'm so passionate about. And there's Maureen, again, just amazing results that they were able to experience. And I've had opportunities to like I said, to share more of what I've learned. I've started doing workshops around the city. I've been able to travel and study in places that I never dreamed. I've been to Spain in the last couple of years, studying the hip through yoga medicine. I've met these just incredible other teachers that have really informed my learning, and that I try to humbly share as well what I've learned. So there's Almut, an amazing teacher out of Germany that was in California when I did my 200-hour teacher training. I've just, again, it's been this thing for me that out of this tragedy has turned into this wonderful life's path. So I had to lose my brother, but I've been able to step deeper into myself. So that was definitely, obviously, the hardest thing that I've had to deal with, but I've been able to step into my purpose, which I'm so grateful for. So the most recent event in my journey is the opening of my yoga studio in Richmond Hill, Ontario. And it's a Neo Yoga studio. And of course, like I said, a tribute to him. And that, my tagline, a return to self, like I said, it doesn't just speak about, what it did for me, but I hope that, any of the students that come across our path, my path, the teachers that are the wonderful group of teachers that work with me, that they find their own purpose, their own journey in the class as well, and outside of. So when I talk about yoga contributing to my healing, it's like I said before, it's not to dismiss other modalities of treatment that are required. I'm just so deeply passionate about what, like I said, we have access to, and if we really listen into that inner voice, and that's really what I did. I listened to that inner voice that said, there's more than this. I had doctors say to me, don't ever squat again, don't ever do this again. Get a bungalow, don't climb stairs. And I was like, I'm 30 years old. This can't be my fate in life, my lot in life. And I said to myself, there has to be something more. And so when we listen to that instinct, when we find the right teachers, the right coaches, the right practitioners, like I said, whether it be another doctor, it's not to say don't listen to your doctor, but if you know that there's something inside of you that says, there's more to life than this, there is a way to find that. We're all on our own journeys, and the most important thing to me to communicate today is that, just be true to yourself and find what's right for you. So I want to thank you for today. Like I said, it's a different experience today. Talking and sharing my story. I got through it without crying. I'm pretty impressed. But I hope that in some small way it's been some sort of inspiration for those of you that might be listening, that might be experiencing some sort of pain in your life right now, and looking for a way to find the way out. So I thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope to see you next week on Shaping Life.